Welcome back to Beautiful Work, Beautiful Life. You're here with two Laurels, two life coaches who love to talk about inner work, who've been doing some deep diving into their own inner work, and love to share and give you ideas about how to do your inner work. So, Laurel, welcome back being together.
I'm so happy to be with you.
I am so happy about it too.
I don't know if our listeners miss you as much as I do, but I miss having our conversations weekly.
It's been such a change for us. It really has. I mean, we really were our first three seasons. If for listeners that are new to us, go back. We have 3 years of weekly conversations about all kinds of inner work, and I think if you go back and you start at the beginning, we deepen our experience. We were new podcasters at the beginning. We're not new podcasters anymore. So I think we, are more on a roll than we used to be. But yeah, this whole idea of changing it up, season to season and doing it differently, I think has been good for us
It's
too.
been
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
good. And as much as I do miss spending every week with you, I love this season. This tales,
Yeah.
of a beautiful life from the beautiful life. It's so rich. All of our interviews have been so good. And solo podcasting, even though it was something that I was really intimidated by, thank you once again for
Mm.
challenging me to step outside of my comfort zone.
I love that you did it, Laurel, because I can see, just from anybody who's like into this season, right? You can see Laurel's expansion and comfort and all the stuff coming along. And I love all the lessons that you've been giving and all the guidance that you've been giving and the ways that you've woven together our themes for clients and inviting them, our listeners to really dig into the work a little bit, beginning and end of the month based on what we're talking about, what subject has emerged. And yeah, it's been so helpful. I love listening to them. So I hope everybody else is enjoying it as much as I am.
Thank you. I will
Yeah.
receive that. And I do, when I think about the inner work that we've talked about all of these years, it is all of the same topics that I bring with clients or I get into conversations with clients. It's the experience clients are living,
Yeah.
right? And you too,
Yeah.
as a life coach, right? So this inner work that we talk about every week, right? It's so applicable to creating a life that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. So our topic today, everybody, is near and dear to Laurel's and my hearts. And we're hot off the press, so to speak, from the topic as well, which we'll talk a little bit about. But our topic today is women first as leaders of their own lives. And I would say leading from the inside out. That will be our focus, right? Is really leading from the inside out because let's face it, I know as a mom, in my early days, before I started really digging in and doing a lot of my work and showed up a little bit better, if I was stressed with my children and I didn't handle things well, I would go to bed at the end of the day feeling really guilty and sometimes even shameful about how I showed up. You know what I mean? Because I knew I wasn't being my best. And that was coming from the inside out. So once I started doing my inner work, I did a lot better job at showing up, authentically with love, with patience, with compassion, with a good listening ear, better habits around listening, better habits around helping and supporting. Like all of that comes from the inner work. So whether it's about your work life, whether it's about your children, whether it's about just you feeling how you feel in the relationships they're in, whatever it is, your inner work can transform it all, literally. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what was just coming up for me really loud as you were speaking
Mm.
is this concept of being leaders of our own life
Yeah.
is an act of resistance.
It is. Ooh,
I
Laurel.
think, right? When I think about this in the world we live in
Yeah,
and
still,
watching what is happening,
you know.
you know,
Yeah,
yes, to not just women, but underrepresented populations.
yeah,
And how can we as women
yeah.
really step up into being leaders in everywhere we show up, right?
Right.
Being a mentor, being a leader to your children,
Yeah,
right? To your spouse or your partner, right? To
yeah,
your neighbors, to your coworkers. Like we have the ability to influence others
yeah.
just by how we live our life.
That's right. That's right. How we're leading, and how we're treating ourselves. I think about a lot of my work with clients. Oftentimes has to do with how you're actually treating yourself. What's your self care practices like? What's your self talk like? Are you being kind to yourself in your mind? Right. There's so many things here around leading your life well from the inside out. And I know our topic jumps off from the conversation I had with Bree McCorkle last week, which was all about the beauty of you with Bree McCorkle, because we did hit on so many women's topics and issues, and the idea of, if you are struggling, right, that you are the only one that can hear the call to more, hear the call to something different, hear the call for help, right, from yourself first and foremost, and then heed the call, right, to go get the help that you need. And help is everywhere around these days. Yeah.
Yes, just for the asking. And I think that's why, this leader role in our lives really does have to come from the inside. Because if we are looking for other people external to us to make the decisions of what we need, what help we need, right? It's us. If we need help, we need to ask for help. We need to utilize the resources that we have available to us and not feel that we don't have that support, right?
Yeah.
So it's really, really incredible to think about. And I loved your conversation with Bree. It's so beautiful to see her coming into her own in
Yeah.
this place where she is a mom, she is a wife, she's a business owner.
Yeah.
And so she has a multifaceted life like most women do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
she is leading her life.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like when you're doing it from the inside out too, one of the themes, of course, was, this idea of like really connecting to your intuition and the call from within, right? To be able to follow the path that's unique and true and right for you. And oftentimes, if we're, let's say, deferring to somebody else's ideas or deferring to somebody else's thoughts about how the house is supposed to be run or family life is supposed to be run or work is supposed to be run, and we don't disagree, we don't agree with it at all. I mean, really, at some level, we're giving up our power to use our voice well, to really stand for what we believe in, to grow into a space where we can do it more authentically and in line with who we are, in our deep self. And it feels so good when we're able to do this, but it takes practice, doesn't it,
It
Laurel?
takes a lot of practice and no longer worrying what someone else thinks about what you need or want, right? I
Right,
mean,
right.
you and I have talked about this,
Yeah,
maybe not on the podcast, but together,
yeah, yeah,
way of, you know, can I, as a woman at 62, stand up in my, I'll just say in my marriage and say, well, I want this.
yeah,
I had this experience recently where I want to replace the windows in two of the bedrooms in our home. Now, our home is 40 years old, and each bedroom has one small window in the middle of the wall. Well, I want two windows side by side. I'm going to say it's just an idea I had from some inspiration at your house, Laurel,
great.
which is
Well,
not 40 years old. And when I was telling my husband what I wanted, he said, well, why would you do that? That's going to require a carpenter, and that's a whole big project. And I said, because I want to.
yeah,
No having to defend myself,
yeah.
no explanation other than because I want to.
Oh, wow. So this is really big, Laurel. I mean, so that's such a great example for us because number one, and this is a topic I was talking about earlier today with a client, is when we start to first do this, it's not comfortable. It doesn't feel good, right? The whole goal of all of this, right, is to feel good, to feel better, whatever it is, right? And that often doesn't happen at the beginning, right? It's uncomfortable to change our patterns and our habits. Also, if you're pretty much wired, to feel like you care and you do worry about what other people think and how they feel, it's one of the things that I feel like you have to take into consideration, that you have to go through the discomfort of challenging that part of yourself in order to be authentically true to your own self, right? And not betray yourself. And
Yes.
that's a work, and you got to work a little bit. You know, that's a
Yes.
progressional experience. There's a little finger on my face, on something on my little video here. I don't know
Oh,
if you can see it, but
I can't see it.
it's one of those Zoom things where they're improving our experience all the time. Not. Thank you anyway.
See if we can get hearts to pop up.
That's right. That's
Um,
right.
but yes, it's not comfortable,
Yeah.
right? This has
Yeah.
been years in the making for me,
Yeah.
right? Think
Yeah.
about it. I mean, it has been years. I have made sure that everybody else is happy and I'm fitting in comfortably to other people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this is new and I can answer this way because it has been years that I have been learning how to do this,
Yeah.
learning how to make peace with there's no further explanation needed than I want it and this is
Mm.
my life and I'm going to lead my life in a direction that I want.
Yeah.
Right. And so it is really interesting. Even a few years ago, I wasn't at this place, right? Me wanting to live by the ocean for 6 months and my husband's response, "Oh, you'll never be home." I really did feel myself shrinking back into, "Oh, I need to be more mindful of what he wants." Right.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so it's just so interesting to see the progression. And for our listeners, I hope you don't have to wait till you're 62 to be able to lead your own life.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Ooh, so many things came up while you were talking. I don't think I can remember them all because I was deep in the listening story. But I was thinking about, uh, an affirmation that almost emerged when you were just saying that. And I think it was something like, I lead my life in the direction that I want. So that's a really cool affirmation. I don't think you said it exactly like that, but you rolled all those words out and it came through that
Feels
way,
right.
right?
Feels
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and it feels really good, and it feels like it's if you say, you play follow the leader,
Yes.
and you're leading yourself, right? When we follow the leader, we follow, but we're usually doing a little bit of a dance of our own. You know what I mean? We do it on our own way, like we're leading, but we might be, behind and doing like a little higher skip step or whatever the follow the leader thing is, right? And so I think it's the idea of leading ourselves. I lead my life in the direction I want it to go. And so sometimes it's not like I'm going to lead myself to the goal immediately, but I'm going to start leading in the direction of where I want to go. So it's like, okay, that direction, if that direction is I want to be authentically true to myself, then you begin to align all your language. Right? When we talk about alignment, this is a big piece. And we talk about this often in podcasts, the idea of alignment. And that's a great example, aligning word, thought, and deed. I want to align, I lead my life in the direction I want it to go. So I begin to form language around my I wants.
Yes.
Most of us don't even say those words.
Yes. It is so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And the act of wanting and then the act of acting on your wants
Yeah.
are powerful steps in creating a life that in which you thrive, right?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's not just about happiness. It
Mm.
is about alignment. It's about that connection with yourself. It's about empowering yourself, giving yourself permission to have wants. I mean, can we start there as women, right? Like
Right. Right.
how
Just the
often,
permission to own
right?
it. Yeah.
I know, right? So I think it's really beautiful to be able to explore that.
Yeah, I think one of the topics that came out with Bree as we're talking about this that's kind of connected, but let's talk about it, Laurel, is she was talking about women, our energy, right? Our natural energy is as a creatrix, right? As a creator, creatrix. We don't even use the feminine term of that,
I
right?
loved that word when
I
she
do
got
too.
that. Oh,
I
yeah.
I know. And I was thinking in contrast, many women think of themselves as caretakers. nurturers, the person in the house that maintains all the equilibrium, that creates the things that have to happen, right? And so to think of yourself as a naturally born creatrix I think that helps you just get in touch with your power. Rather than thinking of yourself as those other things, can you
Yeah.
start to own and wonder what would it look like if I was in my natural creatrix state? Yeah.
And how much could you create
Yeah.
as you step into that,
Yeah.
rather
So,
than
yeah, go
sitting
ahead.
waiting for things to be created for you?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. So I guess the journaling question would be, what would it look like for you to step into the role of creatrix? What scares you about that? What
Yeah.
excites you about that? There's not much difference between the two, right? Yeah. What comes up when you think about being a creative force in the world? I
Yes.
want
And
to yeah, I really want to dig in. Any other journaling questions around that for you?
what
Yeah.
comes up for me is what what preparation, what practice, what what learning do I need in order to step up as a leader, as a creatrix? Is that the word that right?
Yes. Yes.
Because what I know, whenever, thinking about leadership, at least in the work world, in our career space, we set our sights on leadership, and we have a pretty clear vision of what it looks like to increase our leadership skills, right? To
Mhm.
acquire new learning, new resources, to be able to become the leader that we want. And so as we think about this journaling prompt, right, not just what scares you and excites you, but what what learning, what practice do you need to move along and to become the full leader that you were meant to be in
Yeah.
your life?
Yeah. I will challenge the women listening to us today and men too, because, I think this relates to them as well. Uh, is the challenge is the practice of a lot of what we talk about embodiment, right? So learning how to not be head centric, but come down into inhabiting your full body and your creative energy, whoever you are, male or female, the seat of it is below your navel,
Yes.
the seat of that energy in your body. And so if you are disconnected from that energy, or it's, let's say, you can only tap into it, say, from one root, from your heart down. You can't do it from your mind to there or your willpower to there, right? Like what we want is a connection with all of our energy into that creative space. So, to begin with, I would challenge you right now as you're listening, close your eyes, take a breath. Can you even bring your attention all the way down to below your navel in your body and feel connected to that space? Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
When I try, I don't want to say try, when I intentionally tap into that space,
Mm-hmm.
I do it from the soles of my feet
Mm-hmm.
and envision the creative forces of nature, of the earth, coming up through the earth, up through my feet, right up through my legs, into that center of creativity,
Mm-hmm.
which when I do that practice, keeps my head out of it completely.
That's great, Laurel. I feel like, yeah, if you're having trouble getting out of your head, can you first just feel your feet on the ground? I mean, most of us can feel our feet on the ground.
Yeah. And then feel
And
what's
then come up
below,
from
right?
there.
Yes.
I
It is.
love that.
And I live in my head a lot. So I have a lot of practices that really are pulling the energy from other places, from maybe the universe, through my being as if I'm in a little bubble or up through the earth, because my head tends to be where most of my information comes from.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think our mind, what we want to remember is that and George Peterson spoke so beautifully to this, right? Is when you're in meditation, don't expect your mind to be quiet. I mean, the mind is not, that's not the mind's job. The mind's job is to solve problems, come up with great ideas, produce more information, work out the issues, if we're confused, get out of confusion. Like the mind has a lot of work to do, and especially in the world today that we live in, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So part of this is like not relying on the mind to solve all of this, right? If we just want the mind involved, it's an overload already. So come on down. Meet your womb space, your power center, your creative power center, right? And connect there and let it come more naturally rather than forcing, right? I think that's one of the things too about the creative energy is usually when we're coming up with the plan, right, to solve things, when we're nurturing, when we're caretaking, when we're doing, taking care of family stuff, when we're showing up at work and we have to be careful in masculine environments and da 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 da. I'll think of all the things, right? It's like a lot of times we're in protection mode around getting into our creative energy because it doesn't necessarily feel safe in all these environments, but you're the only one that's going to make it safe, right? When we talk about this first lead your own life, right? Become a leader of your own life is like you have to dedicate yourself to this. You have to decide this part is important. You have to decide you want to do things differently. You want to get your inside feeling good so that you can show up on the outside the way you want to. This is all decisions of your own. Nobody else is going to lead you into these decisions, right?
And I'm so glad you mentioned this feeling safe
Yeah.
because, the way that we are wired,
Yeah.
our brain and our nervous system is to revert or continue safe past practices.
Right.
So we know since we survived a past experience, whatever practice we used to survive that past experience is safe. And so our brain puts us back into solving a problem similar to how we solved it previously,
Right.
which really does interfere with becoming more of a leader, with changing how you show up, with your children, at your job, in your family, because our body, our brain, our nervous system might be feeling or sensing this new way of being as a risk.
Right.
And so that is why it's really important to get out of your head as you are creating something new,
Yeah.
getting into your creativity center.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think waiting for safe environments to show up is not necessarily going to, they aren't necessarily going to drop in your lap. And I think that was one of the gifts for me of, early on in my 30s, finding the Women's Center that I did up in Exeter, New Hampshire, and learning about peer leadership training, learning how to be a vulnerable leader, finding the 8 agreements, the group agreements that we had, that created the safe environment, right? And then I took those agreements and I actually started living them in my own life. And so I started creating my own safety in all my circles that I was existing in, right? By sharing those agreements, by living those agreements. Should we go through those real quickly, Laurel? We just did a training on them a couple weeks ago, right? So first one is no advice giving.
How hard is that?
I know. And what a change is that, knowing that everybody has their own best advice and you're just there to help create an environment where they can get to it. Wow, that's a different way of thinking, right?
It really is creating safety for another person to discover their own inner knowledge.
Yeah,
So
right.
powerful. Yes.
Yeah, one person speaks at a time.
That's the second one.
Yeah, and that is so powerful because if you go out in the world, we all know you get interrupted endlessly. People rarely give you the full attention that which is another agreement. Listen non-judgmentally and respectfully, right?
I'm listening.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how do we do the practice of being with other people and learning how to sit there or stand there or lie there if you're reading a book to your kid, right? And listening to the story of the day, like how do you just lie there and and relieve yourself of any judgment that's going on and just respectfully hear what they have to say and wonder what got them there and ask the questions to help them tell you that, right? Yeah, it's so
And just the
different.
four that you have mentioned so far are very countercultural, right?
Oh,
When we think, that being in a conversation, being in relationship means, I'll say, trading information.
yeah,
So often when we're listening and our brain is actively creating a response to what we're hearing.
yeah, yeah,
So to listen without judgment is really, it's a new way of being.
yeah. Yeah, it truly is. It truly is. And, I think part of one of the the agreement of this one's so big, this one, and maybe we'll just end here. If you want to know the rest of them, we'll pop them into the show notes. But, um, you know, when each person shares, it's a confidentiality agreement, but it goes deeper, right? It goes farther. It takes it really, really far, and that is, whatever's brought up in the group is never to be brought up again, except by the speaker, if and when he or she chooses, right? And so, I love this because if you think about the book, The Four Agreements, that was so popular, one of the agreements in there, right, is not to gossip. One of the things you're not supposed to be doing is gossiping. And he talks about how gossip is poison, literally
Right,
poison,
right.
poisoning yourself, you're poisoning other people, right? And so when we start talking about other people's stories, even if it doesn't matter what it is, we're gossiping. I mean, everybody should own their own story. It's a very empowering place to be. Oftentimes when people are talking about other people's stories, it's for their own personal entertainment. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, if we really examine this out in the world today. So if you know that you do that, sometimes that's a hard one to break. I mean, I've known clients that have been like, that's really hard for me to break. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Just
Yes.
start practicing. That's
Yeah.
all. You'll get
And
it. Yeah.
and often as women, this is my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
I often talk with my husband about the children, right?
Yeah.
About our daughters, about his mother,
Yeah.
right? And so it's really interesting because when I stopped and thought about a definition of gossip being talking about someone who is not in the room, in the conversation, I was like, oh, that's a big one. Oh my God. I can only talk about myself and him.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
I know.
But this agreement in these, not just, the gossip agreement, but the agreement in the peer counseling work
Yeah.
that you taught at the leadership weekend
Yeah.
recently, that agreement creates the safe space. And I would even take it after participating in that leadership training and leading, it was a couple of years ago that you and I led a book circle,
Yeah.
and used these agreements as the foundation of the group. So leading a group using these, it creates a sacred space. It's not just a safe space. It
Yeah.
is more than safe.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things I love about it.
Yeah.
Knowing that what you bring in this circle is confidential and only the speaker can bring it up again is so powerful.
So powerful. So
I would
powerful.
encourage our listeners to really begin to think about, do they have a circle? It doesn't have to be a
Mm.
coaching circle. It doesn't have to be a counseling circle or circumstance. It could just be with friends.
Right.
Can they bring these agreements, and we'll drop them in the show notes,
Yeah.
can they bring them to their friendships? And I'm thinking about my Dover girls, right? There's four of us. I can show up and be good, bad, and ugly all in an hour with them, and they love me and accept me. And a lot of that is without judgment. And that is why I feel so safe with them, because they listen
Mm.
and they hold me in a space where they might ask questions,
Yeah.
but they're not, if I ask for advice, they're on it. But if I'm not asking for that, if I just need to be listened to, they're all over that too.
Yeah. 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 And so I feel like if you're thinking out there, oh gosh, am I leading my own life well? Am I leading it in the way I want to? Am I leading it in the direction of what I want? If you're asking yourself those questions today, I would challenge you to maybe, if you want a starting point today, you can pick up these 8 agreements that are going to be in the notes and, yeah, just start practicing them. See what happens. Start practicing them in all your relationships, right? And see what comes up when you're doing them
Yes.
too, right?
Yes. I have
Yeah.
two other suggestions.
Yeah, go.
And we'll put the agreement or the agreements in the show notes, and we can put
Mm,
these journaling prompts in the show notes as well. But one of them is, wouldn't it be great if? Now, I keep this list. Wouldn't it be great if?
yeah.
And when we think about becoming leaders of our own life,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Women as leaders, the wouldn't it be great if list might just give you a creative play space to dream into, what do I want?
I
Right?
love
Wouldn't
that.
it be great if you could begin to really identify what you want? And then the second list that I keep is, if money were no object. Because often I see myself not showing up as a leader because maybe I don't feel that I have the financial backing to show up in this way. Maybe I don't have the financial security, right? But when we go into, if money were no object and I could have or live whatever I want,
Yeah.
it really is freeing. And it helps me to identify the stories I tell myself, which are the things that are holding me back.
Right, right. I love that. I love that. And oftentimes, because most of us carry a scarcity story in here in
Yes.
America because of the Great Depression and other reasons, and so to really rid yourself of that habit of scarcity thinking, right, and all the things that come with that, is being able to put yourself in a space where if money was no object, because oftentimes what we're doing is we're already editing out the things that we think we can have so we don't even get to what we want, right? Because of this scarcity thinking. And so to remove that as one of the limitations then puts you in a place where you can get more in touch with what you really do want. And I love even the phrasing of, wouldn't it be great if, because it also undoes any conditioning you have around, I want is selfish.
Yes.
Right. So wouldn't it be great if is just, wouldn't it be great if, and wouldn't it be great if there was peace and harmony in the world and we stopped all the wars? That's not a selfish thought, I don't think.
No,
Right. Yeah.
and just the expression of, wouldn't it be great if, we don't have to defend that.
Right.
No one
Right.
that I say, wouldn't it be great if,
Hmm.
no one's going to say, they're not going to argue with me,
Right.
right? They can think something different.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I do have to explain my wouldn't it be great if list, often I say, it's just my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just my thought. It's just my list.
Yeah.
Like, nobody has to
Yeah.
agree with it. I don't have to prove it to anybody. And
Right.
that, this is one of the things I'm seeing more and more in my own life. The less I feel the need to prove
Or explain.
or explain, the more I can step into being the leader of my life. And
Beautiful.
I feel like I need to justify what I want, explain it, or convince someone that they want it too. That is not leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
boy, I think the world would be so served by having more and more women stepping into their own leadership space and then expanding it out into the world. I just think right now we really, really desperately need that. And I don't know if anybody needs examples, just turn on the TV.
well, and I want to add,
Mm,
for our listeners who are not women,
mm,
what I believe is we need more conscientious leadership, right?
yeah,
We need more women leaders, but we also need leaders who are not women to step into a leadership style that is different than what is predominant in this country.
Right. Right.
right? I mean, Erica Lewis, when I interviewed her, heart-centered leadership, right?
Right.
Heart-centered leadership is not male or female.
Right.
It is heart-centered leadership. And so when we as women in this episode talking about women, first leading their own lives, it is a heart-centered leadership that, and maybe some intuition too, that we want to bring into our leadership
Yeah.
where we are.
Yeah. And I've seen men that can do it. I mean, I saw it firsthand in my husband when we had a business together. It can be very heart centered, and the man can be leading it
Absolutely.
and also intuitively led, right? He was a
Yeah.
great intuitive too. So, yeah,
Yes.
it doesn't have to be about women. Thank you, Laurel, for like letting us complete on that note, because I think that was really important to bring forth, right? Yeah, especially for our
I
listeners that are not identified as women. Yes.
I wholeheartedly believe this,
Yeah.
that it is not, it is not women that are going to change the world. It's women are going to lead everyone into the change that we need in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
Mm,
Well,
that was
I think we
great.
should wrap there. We could, on this topic, we could go hour after hour, topic after topic that relates to this, but we're going to
Be
wrap up
good.
here. All right. We'll be
Thanks.
back for more, though, every week still. Beautiful work, beautiful life. Thanks for being out there listening to us, spending time with us. We hope you're leading your life well. And if you're not, we hope you're inspired to do it after today.
We appreciate you, listeners.
We do. Bye for now.
Bye.